Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of This Organized Life podcast. I am your host, Lori Palau, and I am really excited for today's guest. So I like to listen to what you guys want to hear, and I'll look back at other episodes that we've done that have done really well or comments that people have made. And whenever we do an episode that has to do with meal planning or food, always tends to do really well. And I'm a foodie, so I don't know if that's just because I have like-minded people with me or if that's just an area that people really struggle with or a combination of all of it. But today's guest, I'm really excited to share with you. Joining me today is my friend Hollan, who is a vegan chef. She's an author. She's a mom and has written an amazing cookbook that I literally have sitting right in front of me. And I'm like putting it up for anybody that can see if I like take a picture of this. It is earmarked all over with Post-it notes from Josh and me on our favorite recipes because she's really built an entire platform on clean eating and just living a healthy lifestyle and simplifying the process, and which is all things that I love. So I wanted her to come on and share a little bit about her story. Also, fun fact, which again, she's going to talk about. She's based in Hawaii. Hello. So major envy as I'm sitting here in a sweater and a hot cup of coffee chatting with her. But we're going to talk all about some inspirational ideas and ways for you as we are starting a new year and we all want to put our best foot forward. How can we begin to maybe incorporate some really good, healthy habits into our lives? So without further ado, Hollan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here, and I hope that we can give your listeners some food for thought.
Yes, absolutely. And so I gave everybody, a very top line overview about you and what you do. But in your own words, can you just tell everyone a little bit about who you are?
Yes. So currently, I definitely would say that I try to inspire people to eat healthier. I try to meet people where they're at. And I am currently trying to change our beliefs in food, and that food is medicine, but it also is an emotional experience. And so I'm trying to hit on both of those things with people through cookbooks, through courses, through private clients, and that's about it. But my background, I was a restaurant owner for 6.5 years before I sold it. I went to pastry school 21 years ago. And, as a mom, I'm constantly trying to get healthy food in front of my kids, and even as they grow into adults. And so that's one of the big purposes in my life as well.
I love that. And I had to like chuckle in my head a little bit. So you went to pastry school. So, and now you're this like vegan, clean eating, expert guru. That must be a complete shift, or maybe not. I don't know. It just seems like pastry. I think of like sugar and creams and all yummy stuff
Yes.
that
All of it. I literally went to pastry school because of my love of just being in a kitchen after I had my first child. I loved being in the kitchen, but I loved consuming pastries. That's why I chose pastry school, a croissant, morning pastries, cakes. And so it definitely was a huge shift when I went vegan. But it actually was like my saving grace, because I was able to take everything I had learned in pastry school and culinary school, and I was able to adapt these new ingredients to the styles that we cooked. And for me, it allowed me to keep my love of food while I transitioned over to a plant-based diet.
And that's like, again, I mean, that's a big shift. And my husband became vegan in January of 2020. So, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
it's been a little over a year at this point, and obviously there's a lot of different reasons why people make that decision and make that commitment. Can you just talk to us a little bit about your experience, what drew you to
Oh
become
yeah.
vegan, and just kind of give us that
Yeah.
background?
So I do say that normally people go vegan for three reasons. Number one, either health. They've heard that there's health benefits to eating an all plant-based diet. Number two, for animals. Um, a lot of people make the transition because they no longer want to eat animals. And number three is for the health of our planet. A lot of people have believed that global warming or emission gases are caused by our foods. So they choose for that. And for me, I went into it for health reasons. Although that latter two, definitely, I call them bonuses for me because they keep me in it. And I was 29 years old. I had been diagnosed with gestational diabetes in my third pregnancy. And it was the first aha I had that food was creating something in my body. If I ate a cookie and I took my blood sugar, it spiked. If I didn't eat any sugar, it didn't spike. And so it just started to allow me to see that there is a reaction besides my love of food and it making me feel full happening in my body. And so that was my first aha at 29. And from there, I just started researching food. I become a little obsessive compulsive on things when they have my attention. And so I just couldn't believe it. And I had lost my health. I had had three kids, my first at 22, second at 25, and third at 29. And in those years, I just struggled. I had kidney stones. I had had surgery for endometriosis twice. I was always sick or had a hurt tummy. And so I just didn't feel good. I was overweight. I couldn't take off the weight from my third baby. I think I was up to 170 pounds. And I had no lackluster, or there was a complete lackluster for life. And I knew it was within me. And so as I started reading things, for me, vegan really made sense. A lot of the things that they were pointing out in animal products and the disease that it can turn on in your body just added up for me. And the funny thing is I think I chose vegan because you could still have pastries, right?
Oh my
It's the
gosh,
only one where it
that
was no
is
sugar.
that is so funny. Well, can I tell you a quick funny side story? So
Yes.
my husband's type 1 diabetic. So he's been, taken shots since he was 17 years old. And I think, and I don't want to speak for him, but I think he probably went into it for similar reasons. Same with you, like for health. But then the other two things that you talked about, specifically the environment, was
Yes.
really like started actually becoming more apparent as he did more and more research. But that's not the point of my story. We would go out, and we used to go to this steakhouse locally, and that was kind of like our go-to place. But sometimes we would get like seafood and whatever. And when he became vegan, I'm like, what are you going to eat there? And he's like, I can eat French fries. And I was like, that is not what you're supposed to do. And he's like, I'm going to have a salad and French fries. And he's like, I'm allowed to have French fries. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so he's like, they're vegan. So that was like his thing.
Which brings me to a very good point, right? Like, we're all looking for a diet that's going to make us feel good. It's going to keep us thin, especially as women, right? That's a huge factor for women. And that makes us feel good. And what I've been doing this for 14 years now, and I've worked with hundreds of clients and people. And what I've come to realize is every body's different, and your body constantly changes with what it needs and what it doesn't need. And then there's this inherent emotional aspect to food for us, right? And so for me, if I'm on a keto diet or a paleo diet, which I believe every diet works short term, I do not want to put down anyone's theories. Anytime we consciously look at what we're putting in our body, we're making healthier choices, and any diet does that. But what I found is if I can't teach you how to have things you love in a healthier form, or to tell you you can still have French fries, or you know what, you can have a vegan croissant, it doesn't mean that you're never allowed to have it. It won't work. And so my biggest thing now is like sitting down with people, and it's like, what are the foods you love? What makes you happy? What makes you hit that zing thing in your brain so that you still have this love of food? And so like with someone like your husband, like, hey, he loves French fries, I would say 100%. You can even have French fries, once a week, every other week, things you haven't been told, as long as you're checking in with your body and seeing how they make you feel. Right. But I think it's so important that we look at our love of food when we're deciding what lifestyle is going to work for us, or else it won't be manageable. It will not be practical, and it definitely will not be sustainable.
I agree 100%. And I mean, we talk about this all the time when it comes to organizing, and there's so many parallels between how people eat well or take care of themselves and their house and how they, because it's all discipline, right? It's discipline. And I always, when I'm working with a client or I'm talking to somebody, you don't have to have everything be color coded. That doesn't define something to be organized. I mean, that's one way, but that's not the only way. You don't have to have everything decanted in clear glass jars that are beautifully labeled in order for you to be organized. There's a spectrum, just like with eating. And if you have to white knuckle your way through something, then it's not, to me, like you said, it's not sustainable, and it just becomes a drain emotionally in addition to your time. And so, I think it's great that when you say that you talk to your clients about kind of like, what do you love? What do you want to do? Because I think everybody's goals are different, and it's important when we're looking at that.
And we attach to other people's goals, right? People sell us on something. And I do want to say that any program I'm selling anyone on, or any program someone is, it's a snapshot of their life from when they were feeling good and had things figured out at that moment. But when we sell it as something that's long-term and that you constantly won't have to check in with yourself and see where you are, I really think that we're doing people a disservice. And so for me, it's really about teaching people how to check in with their bodies, right? Being disciplined. I just did a 3-day reset in my home for my children and me, and, had all the food prepared and knew what we were going to eat. And I just think it's so important to start understanding that health is individualized, and you're the individual. And so it's your responsibility. And there's so many keys and so many tools that I can give people, or other people can, to help you there. But it really is a personal journey.
I think that's great that you said that, and I echo everything that you're saying. And you bring up an interesting point because you talk about your kids. And obviously, this is something that you started when they were babies or toddlers, so they've grown up with you being vegan. And so obviously you can make certain choices of what foods you want to bring into your house, what you don't want to bring into your house, what you want to expose them to. But for people listening out there, and I just even know, like, how's your cooking? Has this something that is trickled into your kids? Are they vegan? Do they eat plant-based products? Or animal products? And what does that look like in terms of the kind of shopping, meal prep, all those things?
Yeah. So it's interesting. We talked about it. My kids are, in their teens. I have an adult, and then I have one child who's just about to turn 14. And it's been an evolution. There's been quite the spectrum with my kids. And when I first went vegan, especially with the health aspects, like, I wanted it for my children more than me. Like, I cared more about their health than my own, right? Like, and so it definitely took me just letting go a lot of what I thought, right? Because I think that happens as we learn things and we become so tightly attached to them. And I really was like that with my kids when I first went vegan. And then as your kids grow up, they humble you and make their own decisions, which has been very true of my kids. And so my kids eat all different sorts of things. They do eat animal products. For me, with being able to be in control in some way, or knowing that they get things, my house is vegan. Mm-hmm. And so I don't have animal products in my house. I only cook vegan foods. My kids, for the most part, love vegan foods. I think that a lot of their comfort foods will end up being plant-based foods because of me. And, when my son was in college and, it's just like, oh, swoon as a mom, especially like a health mom. But, he sends me pictures of his shopping cart and he'll do vegan gluten-free cleanses when he's not feeling well. And so my kids definitely know there's a link between food and disease and the way you feel. And so they're going to have their own journeys and their own health journeys, but they definitely have a lot of information and keys that I didn't have at their age.
Yeah, I think it's great and I love it. And I think, again, so much of what our kids learn from us is just through what they live, and I know I remember when my daughter went to college, well, not even when she went to college, but this year she was in an apartment and she was sending me pictures of like disorganization from her roommates. And my daughter is like not a neat freak at all. Like she used to say she was going to grow up to be a hoarder just to upset me. But she was like, Mom, can you believe how messy this is? And she would send me a picture and I'm like, that's not even that messy. Like you're just used to a level that because that's your norm. Like that's what you grow up with. So I think, again, like looking at your kids, kind of the bar that you've set for them of like what's healthy and what's acceptable and what's not, like, or the way that we do things, it's just going to be, it's just ingrained in them. And so whatever choices, and again, that's not to say my kid doesn't have clothes all over the floor or, doesn't put her stuff away, but it's just interesting kind of what they take with them.
Yes. And it's so true. And, I did realize at some point that my kids did have their own journey and I really had to let go and I can just be a reminder of those things. But it also has been very humbling for me in what I do, right? Because people hold us to this certain level. I've been vegan for 14 years. I have not had one product that I consciously have taken in that isn't vegan. This lifestyle worked very well for me as soon as I started it. I just found more and more reasons, health-wise and other, on why to continue. But I think kids are so great because they're so humbling in different ways, right?
Oh, yeah. So what are some of the immediate, not that this is a commercial for becoming vegan, but what are some of the immediate effects that you saw? Because I think so much of what empowers us in any journey, right, that we're going on is when we see progress, when we see it. And that's, I talk to my clients all the time about like when it comes to like clutter and organization, like again, like once you can start to see the results and how that's impacting you in a positive way, that in and of itself is motivation to keep going. So I'm sure that there were some specific things that you could talk. So can you just talk about that?
I mean, for me, they're still happening. And this is like 14 years later. And so a lot of it was just symptoms from disease I had, right? Like endometriosis. It was very normal for me when I was walking around, which if people don't know, it's scar tissue that's sticky on your insides. And so I could be walking around and feel pretty normal and all of a sudden get stabbing pain and need to be in bed. Those pains went away very quickly. It was really odd where it was like even 3 weeks later where I was like, oh my God, I haven't had any of my spells. Since then, I have not even had to be checked for endometriosis whatsoever, let alone have surgery. I have not had kidney stones in 14 years and all of the things that come to it. My skin cleared up. I used to have like tons of little tiny bumps behind my arm cleared up. Restless leg syndrome, I believe they called it, where my legs would just kind of be tingly at night. And then the biggest one has been weight, right? Like I don't struggle with my weight and I go on benders of not eating, that healthy for what my bar is, right? And so I've been able to control my weight, which is huge for me. I'm not someone that was one weight. I definitely fluctuated before. And so that's been huge for me. And then on the physical side of it, and it's so hard to say because like, I don't know where I'd be if I never started eating this way. But I'm going to guess I would be in a lot more disease. I would probably be overweight. And at 43, I have a yoga practice, which I really do to clear my head. But my body's gotten stronger and stronger. This year, I've been able to get into a headstand, which I've never been able to do in my life. I can do the splits both ways. And I have goals of doing like a handspring and a headstand. And I really think all of it comes down to what I eat, that I have vibrancy, and I really do have this zest for life and this zest to learn new things. And I see on the flip side a lot of my friends who aren't, maybe more have excuses on why their body isn't working, or why they can't make it to yoga, or why they couldn't do a headstand. And so for me, I believe like my abilities and the fact that I think I can still grow after the life sentence of 43 has
please.
been
Please.
huge. I know. Exactly. But yeah, I plan on being able to do more and more as I age. And the biggest thing is I really own my health. Like, no matter what. I mean, I know we're in the time of COVID, and I know I'm not fearful of disease. I'm not fearful of getting something. And it's not because I won't get it. It's that I know I have the tools and ability to heal my body, and I do want to say, like, a little side note is I'm not telling anyone they'll live longer eating this way, because I don't know. I mean, I believe I'm a baby at 43 right now. And so the truth is that I just own my own health in a way that I never did before, and so that's pretty amazing that I believe with food and with everything I know about the body that, we can reverse disease. Our body wants to heal. And I believe plants are the foundation of that.
Well, so my first introduction with vegan plant-based lifestyle was Chris Carr with
I love Chris Carr.
I know. And again, my community, my audience knows that I do a lot of work in my private life with pediatric cancer research and just cancer in general. And so obviously there's so many links about plant-based diets or being such a healing tool for people with cancer. It's not necessarily, again, not going out there saying anything's curing anything, but just
No.
I've seen firsthand with friends who have been battling just the positive impacts from a plant-based diet.
Yes.
I do want to just talk a little bit about, because we have people that might be listening going, this sounds great, right? This all sounds great, but it's work. It's a lot of work. It's so much easier for me as a mom or as a bit. I mean, I know we're not, especially like currently, we're not like necessarily on the go as much as we were before, which in some ways is a good thing. But it's so much easier for me to give my kids chicken nuggets. It's so much easier for me to just do the like low hanging fruit, no pun intended, or, and this is going to be like another job. Like for me to cook vegan is going to be like another thing on my to-do list.
Right.
What do you have to say about that? Because I'm sure that that's a common thing that you hear.
It's habitual. So it's like, it's easy to you because you've been doing it. That chicken nugget seems easy, it's because you're on autopilot. It's like, when we're driving around our neighborhood and it seems like nothing, and then you like fly somewhere and you're driving and you're gripping the handle and you're like, oh my God, I have to pay attention. It's because we're not in that autopilot. And so that's part of it. You're going to have to learn new ways, but I can tell you that I promise it becomes as normal as the lifestyle you're living now. For me, it's just as easy to throw in broccoli, or, I love these field roast nuggets into the toaster oven. I don't use a microwave, as it was to throw in chicken nuggets, and people ask me constantly, like, how is it you shop? I don't understand how you do this. And the truth is I don't understand how regular people shop at this point. It's been 14 years. Like, I go to the outers of my grocery store. There's not very much in the middle aisles I want. And all of those sauces, and everything that you love probably is based on a sauce that we can make plant-based. So all your vegetables and everything hit on that. And so that's a whole nother thing, is that, we coat our food and we cover our food and we season it and we salt it and we do all these things. And what I find with a lot of clients is that you actually love those things, not even so much the protein that's under it. And so for me, it's really about that. How do we take what you're doing, not have it be more time, right? Introduce you to new ways of cooking in old ways. Take what you know with new ingredients and just get started from there. But it definitely is going to rock you a little with your habits because you're learning something new. Although I promise you, our brains love learning new things.
I love this. I think it's a perfect time for us to just take a quick pause. And then I want to come back and I want to dive into your book because I love it, love it, love it. And I just can't wait to share it with everybody. So sit tight. Okay. So when we first got connected, you sent me a book and
Yes.
I couldn't, again, it is, first of all, it's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous book. It's one of those books that you're like, oh, I love this. I just want to be in it. Okay. It's got amazing images and pretty vibrant colors and just all of the things. But what I love most about it, okay, so first of all, let me say, I don't like recipes. I'm one of those people that likes to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I like to do my things. I don't like to follow recipes because I feel like they become labor intensive.
Yeah.
But I said, because I knew I was going to have you on the show, I'm like, I'm going to go through here. I'm going to pick out some things and I'm going to make them. Your recipes were so easy to follow and so simple. It was like 5 ingredients and this was like a masterpiece. I want you to talk about, first of all, what made you decide to take the leap from living a vegan lifestyle to then writing a cookbook? And then how did you come up with all the recipes? Just walk us through the whole scenario.
So friends used to come to my house all the time, right? And I had the restaurant as well. And unlike you, I do not like cookbooks. I don't like recipes. Even as a chef, when I go through them, I'm like, oh my goodness, you are going to have me at 5 stores. I'm going to be tired before I even get in the kitchen. Right. And then having kids, I have 3 kids. There were things that they liked and there were things that they didn't like. So all of my recipes had to be very, very simple, right? He doesn't like onions. She doesn't like carrots. That one doesn't like dill. And so for me, that became a very easy way to make staples with very few ingredients. And who has time, right? But so when my friends would come and visit me, they would all say, oh, I could eat this way if I just had you in my home. So I decided what's the best way for me to get into people's homes, and it definitely would be with a cookbook and really trying to teach it. And it definitely was a stretch for me with learning how to write down what I do. I'm a very organic cook. I throw extra stuff in if I have it. I don't. I remove stuff if I'm not eating it. And so for me, it definitely made me sit down and get very organized with my process and start to understand how I could share that with other people. But I wanted people to look at this book and be like, oh my God, I have that in my cabinet. I can make that tonight. And I also wanted people to be able to personalize it. Like, what spices do you like? What do you like spicy? Do you like no spice? Do you love cilantro? Do you hate cilantro? You can add it in. It's not my preference.
Yeah. And I love that. And I did. There were a couple minor tweaks because, again, I was like, it was like a test to myself that I was like, I'm going to try to follow her recipe like to a T. Because again, I'm like, that rebel part of me was like, I want to just do a little bit of this. But there was like, I forget what ingredient. There was like one spice I didn't have. I was like, whatever. And then there was, again, but it was so simple. And then like my husband doesn't like spice at all. So I'm like, okay, well, we won't do this, but then I can add this, later if I wanted to.
Yes.
And the beauty of the recipes that I've made so far in your book, as I'm like kind of working my way through it, is if you didn't know, like if someone didn't point out, like this is a vegan recipe, like it's like delicious. There's flavor and depth and richness, and you're full. And it's not, I think there's this maybe hopefully less, just because it's becoming more mainstream and there's so many vegan options, but you're not eating rabbit food. Like, you are full, and the food is like, there's sustenance to it.
Yeah, that's the thing I think with a lot of people when I first start working with them is the difference between feeling full and satiated is like a lot of people full means feeling sick, that you get tired. That's like kind of how they know. And so for me, I really try to teach people to start to pay attention to how they feel after they eat something, because food is energy. It's actually supposed to give us energy. And we've gotten really used to it bringing us down or making us feel tired or lose like our love of life, or, whatever it is.
Or fall
And so
asleep.
fall asleep. Like people, when I put them on this diet, like a lot of them are like, well, I don't think I really felt full. And like, this is the other thing, right? Like, there's no bad cholesterol in plant foods. None. That only comes from animal products. And a lot of people don't know that. And the thing is that like, if you need to eat 2 Beyond Burgers because you used to eat a burger, like, do that until your brain and your stomach cut up with what it actually feels like to be full. Like, you cannot overdose on vegan food. Like, I dare you to try to eat enough vegan food to feel sick like you do on regular foods. And so that's part of it as well, is like teaching people, like, I don't care if you eat a whole pan of my lasagna and you would have only eaten 1 piece of regular meat lasagna. I want you to see what that actually does to your body and your digestion, that you could feel better eating a pan than you do eating one, and so.
Which is, for somebody who's like a portion person,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
is great, because I'm all about like, I could eat like a linebacker. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a portion person. So just having that like freedom is.
Yeah, like a bowl of salad with like my vegan ranch.
Yeah.
Eat 3 of them. Eat 3 giant ones. I dare you to feel full or try to get to the point where you're like, oh my God, I cannot take another bite. Or I want you to get there while you're transitioning. Like, have those feelings, because your body's going to catch up. I have this other theory on food, just very quickly, with an evolution, and you saying it's a spectrum, right? Like, people who are just trying to make, not like your husband, where he read about it and he wants to make this complete lifestyle change, right? He's special. But most of us are not like that, right? We want to tiptoe into things. And so for me, with health and not just vegan, I just want to remind people that, like, if you eat McDonald's right now, if you switch to Subway, your body's going to catch up and make changes. And as soon as it stops making changes, maybe go to the local sandwich shop. And once you are eating there and your body stops making changes, then I want you to go to maybe Whole Foods and get an avocado sandwich instead. And then maybe from there down the road, you'll switch that to a salad. It's just like evolving what you eat now into a healthier form. And it doesn't have to be the healthiest. Like, I run into people at the grocery store all the time who like are overweight. They don't know a lot about health, and they'll show me like the program they're going to do. And I'm like, that would be hard for me. Like, that would be hard for me now. And you're going to do this. And so that's the other thing. We believe that to lose weight or to feel good, we have to be deprived. And I just want to tell you, you do not have to be deprived to have a healthy relationship with food that supports your body. Right? And so start your evolution, start your spectrum. Where are you on this spectrum? And are you trying to make this huge jump that isn't possible? Or can you take baby little skips, right, on each one? And your body will tell you when you plateau, and it's time to make another change. But your body needs very little to start making the changes for you. And so that's like one of the things, like, just baby steps. Just try it out and see how you feel.
I love it. And it's true. And again, just kind of linking it back, I say the same thing when it comes to organizing. This is the way that you've been eating is a product of probably how, like, you've lived your life for a certain amount of time. So if you are used to eating, a lot of meat and potatoes and, heavy stuff all the time, or a lot of dairy, and all of a sudden, like, you're not, that's a shock to your system. Like, that's a
Yes.
big deal. And I say the same thing with clutter. It's like, if you are don't have systems and you're not used to putting stuff away, don't all of a sudden say, okay, we have to change everything at once. Make one small stuff. Just start by saying, I'm going to hang up my coat. I'm going to open the mail. I'm going to make the bed. Like, those little changes. And then once that muscle memory becomes, just starts, becoming routine and
Autopilot, right?
right. Thank you. I couldn't think of the word. I had a brain freeze.
Right.
But once that goes on autopilot, then do something else. Add to it, layer it. It doesn't have to all be at once. You don't have to make this quick 180-degree turn at once.
But I want my house to look like yours right now.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
And again, and I think it goes back to everything that we see on Instagram and everything that we, look at it in a magazine or whatever, is we look at our today, like, we look at where somebody else is and we judge ourselves, and not playing, giving credit to, like, what it took for that person to get there. What was the work that went into having that look like that, or them look like that, or whatever that
and highs, lows, right? And like, those are
Yes.
things I want to talk about. I think we don't, because we get really righteous, right? Like, I know vegans that have had cancer. So like, I never want to say anything like that, but I do know that for the most part, people who eat vegan have much lower rates of cancer. And so that's something we should look at, right? And also with disease, that's like one of the things I try to point out to people, is that besides inheriting disease from your family, which I believe I have like eradicated so many by just changing the way I eat, what my family history was, I don't see any of those signs. However, we inherit our family's habits. And so I don't know what came first, if it's a gene that predisposes you, or it's the fact that you drink half and half every single day that puts your body in disease. But that's one of the things, just, food for thought. Like, did I actually inherit this, or did I inherit my family's habits? And is that what's causing the disease?
And it's also, there's a big part of just mindset. And I think that is really an important thing for people to just recognize, because, and I'm speaking from personal experience. Okay. I gave up dairy almost 2 years ago. I have arthritis, and I have inflammation, and I eat pretty cleanly. I'm not vegan, but I eat pretty cleanly. And I loved half and half of my coffee. So I wasn't sitting down. I wasn't eating bowls of cereal with milk. I wasn't eating gobs of ice cream, but put a charcuterie tray in front of me and I was all over it. And I'm a coffee drinker. Everybody knows, like, I love my coffee. And I said, I could never give up my half. Famous last words. I could never give it up. And I decided one day, I was like, I really think I eliminated so many different things for my diet. I tried gluten-free, I did this, but I had this stronghold when it came to dairy. And I finally said, you know what? I'm going to make the switch. I'm going to give it up. And I know myself, I have to be an abstainer. Like, I can't just have a little bit. Like, I'm an all or nothing person. So, and I love pizza too. So it was like hard for me, but I said, I'm giving up dairy, and I switched to almond milk. And at first my coffee was gross at first, and I hate it, but I powered through. I played through for about a week. Like, it wasn't long. It was a week, but I was like, I can have coffee. Like, for me, a lot of it's the ritual. Like, we get into things based on our ritual of wanting to do it. And the fact that I was still allowed, I'm using my air quotes, to have my coffee, even though it wasn't with the half and half, after a week, my taste buds adapted. And now if I even have a sip of, by accident, if I accidentally like pick up somebody else's coffee, I can't digest it. It's amazing how we adapt.
Very quickly, and your taste buds have to change. Like, I can't tell you that like I enjoy my coffee with almond milk any less than I did my coffee with half and half, right? But that first week, definitely with the change of taste buds. And also, like, I want to point out to people, right, that almond milk, let's take that one for instance. Just like in dairy, you have non-fat milk, which is going to be all your shelf stable nut milks. They are more water. They're going to be non-fat milk. If you like non-fat milk, buy it off the shelf. If you're a 2%er for dairy, you want to go ahead and grab that refrigerated milk. It has more almonds, less water. That's why it needs to be in the refrigerated section. And so if you're a whole milker, I'm going to tell you want to replace that probably with canned coconut milk, which is going to have the taste, but it's the only way to get the fat content. So like if you've had almond milk and don't like it, I love 2% milk growing up. And so for me, I'm not sponsored by them, but Califia almond milk in the refrigerated section to me replaced everything. And, now I'm very, very fond of it. And I also want to say with disease and organization, I find it's more those micro doses of things that affect people. Like people will tell me like, oh, well, I'm allergic to nuts. And, and I was like, well, when's the last time you had nuts? They're like, oh, I don't know, like 3 months ago. I'm like, okay, well, one serving of nuts 3 months ago has not done this to your health. So let's talk about what toothpaste you use. Like, what do you use in your coffee every day? It's those micro doses that we consistently do that cause disease. So what are those little things? Do you have a bowl of cereal every night before you go to bed? Can we replace that with almond milk or cashew milk or hemp milk or oat milk, right? So for me, I'm a big believer in breaking up your little things that you do habitually every single day and looking at those before you look at like, oh, I kind of get a hurt tummy when I eat broccoli, but I only eat it every 6 months. Because those are the things I deal with, right? And to me, we just have it backwards and we haven't been taught this, right? Look at what you're doing every single day and you can find probably where disease is setting in, whether it be dairy, whether it be meat, whether it be products or chemicals in your products. It's kind of all of those things. And because I am in health, right, it all comes back to this because I think there's at least with what has happened with my body and what I've read, there's so many misconceptions and we're really missing something.
No, I love it. And it's true. And again, like everything, this isn't a judgment. We all have choices and it has to come down to kind of what's a priority to you, what's a priority to your family. And again, you have to put in the work at the beginning. And again, like when I organize a space and I'm like, it gets worse before it gets better. And you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And it can feel foreign and uncomfortable and overwhelming. But then that becomes your new norm, right? We adapt to it.
Yeah.
And when you start to notice, like when I gave up dairy and my taste buds adapted and I was like, okay. But then when I noticed that my joints ache less and my ankles weren't swollen and I wasn't retaining, like that was the motivation. And so I think whatever that is for you out there listening, when you can find that, you're like, wow, I am empowered to do this. And I think that your approach and your cookbook specifically makes it really easy and attainable for anybody. I mean, your French toast, hello.
How amazing is that? And it's like, the truth is that's actually the original French toast recipe. Like a lot of the things we didn't have the abundance that we have now. And so French toast literally was when people had stale bread and they couldn't eat it, they still had flour, they mixed it with water. How can you get a second life out of your bread? And as we became abundant in animal products, we started, it would be so much better if it had the yolk of an egg in it or some milk or butter for fat. But it originally, French toast was originally vegan, right? But how yummy is that?
Oh my
I
God.
love that recipe. Just
It's
saying.
incredible. It's incredible. Seriously, people, like I am gonna, and I'm starting to get hungry also because for me it's approaching lunchtime. So I'm like, I just wanna, but again, this stuff is so great. And in terms of, meal prep and shopping, like it's very simple because again, you're not looking at these like crazy ingredients that you have to go to 50 different stores. And most grocery stores today, maybe at least where I live, like I'm not shopping. Like I don't have I live in a small little country town and I don't have a Whole Foods. I don't even have a Trader
Neither.
Joe's. So like for me, I'm shopping at the regular grocery store,
Yeah.
and I can find 99% of everything that you're putting. I probably find 100%, but there's always probably something you can't find. So that's what I'm saying. I can find the majority of things in a regular grocery store. So you don't have to go to like some super health food store or, a specialty shop in order to get this stuff. It doesn't have to add any more to your day.
Right. It's funny because when I got the booking for this, like I was like, ooh, the organized life. Like, I don't know if I should be on that. Right. I was like, I need her. Like, can I interview her? But there is a truth to organization, right? In the kitchen and in shopping. And it's one of the things I realized. So like for me, when I'm going to make a bunch of stuff or I know what my food prep is going to be, right? And hopefully this will help your listeners in some way, but I write down my list, right, of what I need. And then I know what I have in my kitchen, right? If you have dill or, oh, I have milk, I don't. And so I start to scratch what I have off of those, right? The recipes I'm going to make, what I have, I just scratch that off. And then I actually move everything I need into categories in the store. So I have like my baking aisle, I have like my fruit and veggies. And so for me, that saves so much time where I'm not like, oh my God, I forgot baking soda and I have to go back. And so ways like that, I'm very organized, right? Same thing with food prep. In terms of, I'm a big believer, if it's made, you're going to choose it. Like, even if I drive by a pizza place, if I know I have food in my fridge, I'm like, I'm going to eat that. Right. And so that's another thing. Like, how can you support yourself in having foods that are readily available? I'm a huge believer in a salad bar in your fridge. I try to clean all of my greens, get everything going, have carrots chopped up, celery chopped up, cucumbers all in separate containers, 4 different sauces. I normally have like rice or sweet potatoes. And then being able to throw that together in 2 or 3 minutes and make a bunch of different meals out of it is just, I think that's the best way to be organized in the kitchen. And then time limits on stuff. So for me, when my kids were little, I called it bath time prep, where I would start, and I'm like literally like Iron Chef. Like I am running from the bathtub to the kitchen because I try to have all my prep done before it fills up. And I used to laugh. It used to be for my kids, and now it's for me. It's like I fill up the bath for myself during food prep. But with busy lives, like I don't have more than 5 or 10 minutes of like prep time, not cook time, because stuff can cook on its own, but prep time, to feed my family or even to feed myself. And so that's part of it, is like believing that you can get better in the kitchen and faster and use tools to get there, and that it doesn't have to be complicated, is like one of my really big things for being organized. It's like not allowing other things we only have so much time, right? Other things to radiate in. Like I can't be late for this interview because my prep time in the kitchen went longer than I thought. And so that's another thing for me, time management in the kitchen with all of it.
Oh my gosh, I love everything you said. And as I'm sitting there, I think again that pre-meal prep, like you said, if you've got stuff ready to go,
Yes.
that is key. And I have done that. I do that in my own home. For me, Sundays, I'll do like, I cook in parts a lot of times. So I'll make, my husband's Spanish, right? Or he's Cuban. So like we have a lot of rice and beans in our house, like even like we always have, but like I'll have, I'll have, our sauteed vegetables or this or that, made so that when people come in and you're ravenous, you have something that you can grab and go, as opposed to going to that quick default of going into the pantry and grabbing something to just fill up the void,
Right?
not really get to the root of
Yeah.
the problem.
Or a second cup of coffee. I'm like,
Yes.
oh, I'm hungry. Maybe a second cup of coffee
Oh,
because there's no food made.
You're singing my song, sister.
Right?
Before we have one more quick break before we wrap up, but can you just let our listeners know where they can go to learn more if they want to take your courses or look into any of your one-on-one coaching, get the book, all the things? Where can they go to find you?
So hollanhawaii.com is the best way to find me because it has links to everything. I have 2 of my resets on there. You can order the cookbook from there, and you definitely can contact me. I'm in charge of my own email, so I respond to everything. This really is my life mission. I love answering questions. I also love knowing what people need so that I can give that content. So please reach out to me. And I'm most active on the gram every single day. You can find me there. And yeah, I really love doing this. And I really love, letting people know that they can change their life and they can change their body. And I'm proof of that. And they can do it in their own way. Like, I would never want to take like your husband from Cuba and change the foods he loves. Like, I just want to show him like how it can be healthier. Cuba loves pork. I went there. I was like, I could barely even eat. Yeah. It was like the best cleanse I've ever done. I called it the Cuba cleanse because I could eat nothing when I was there. I was like, wait, there's pork in your salad dressing? Wait.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Could you just eat rice?
Yes. And
could you just eat, or did they put pork in?
Oh no, there's pork broth in the beans and the rice.
Oh
no.
Oh,
there was really nothing I could have. And the internet was down, but literally I realized when I was there, and this is the thing, right? I realized when I was there that I'm pretty allergic to soy as a vegan because they have no soy. So for me, cutting it out, it was one of those things that I was doing very small amounts of because most vegan products have soy additives.
Yeah.
And soy sauce or tamari was my biggest flavoring. I love it. Now it's coconut aminos. But things like that, right, really can show you something. Like I went somewhere where I couldn't eat it all, and I literally found a missing puzzle piece to my health.
Wow, that's incredible.
That's really... I love Cuba, by the way. You can
awesome.
One of my favorite people I've ever met in my life, Cuba. I'd go back in an instant.
Yeah, we want to go. I haven't been, so.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back to do our wrap-up questions. All right, Hollan, this has been such a fun conversation. I love it. I hope everybody listening is feeling energized and inspired and runs right out and grabs your cookbook. So please do it. Again, we'll have links to all things Hollan in our show notes, including her book. All right, so we always like to wrap up our interviews by sharing sources of inspiration for our listeners. You've obviously been a source of inspiration for me and so many other people. So I have 3 quick questions for you, and you can answer them in whatever order you want. So the first one is, what books over your life, or book, it doesn't have to be multiple, has inspired you? And it could be something related to health or parenting, or just not even at all, just something else, a book that has meant something to you. And then we'll start with that, and I'll go to our other 2 questions.
So in terms of food, it's Skinny, and I don't know if we can say the word on here, Skinny Bean.
Yeah,
Skinny
yes. Yes,
Skinny
yes.
was the book that changed my life, and I feel like I owe my health to them. I mean, literally, I am so grateful. And that was the book I read 14 years ago. But in terms of making changes, I'm a huge Joe Dispenza fan, and Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself is maybe my favorite life-changing book.
And we will link to both of those because I think people are always looking for resources. They love it when we link to other people's go-to books. And then because our show is all about organization, but also about honesty and authenticity, we know that there's parts of our lives where we are thriving and feel like we are killing it when it comes to being organized, and other parts where we feel like a little bit of a hot mess. So in this particular season of your life, where do you feel that you're thriving, and where do you feel like you need a little TLC?
I think where I'm thriving is definitely I'm thriving in organizing myself for the life I want. Like I really am looking at myself for the first time and being like, where do I want to be in a year? What does that actually look like? Where do I want to be in 5 years? As opposed to like chasing something that doesn't have an end, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I really am organized and looking at my future and the way I want that to look. And that feels really good, as opposed to like, oh, if this gets me here or there, it's just like I'm organized on the end game,
I love
or the beginning game, whichever way you look at it.
Exactly. Exactly. I like it. And I think it's great because goal setting is really important. And I think that really
Yeah.
helps us stay on our path.
Hot mess. So for me, I'm a all or nothing. I think we have very similar personalities. You've said things where I'm like, oh, that's so me. And so all or nothing, my life worked before when my kids would go to school. I work for myself, but I normally have an hour or two to organize myself and my life. And I'm someone, my house has to be picked up, right? I can have dishes and laundry going, but like if stuff's all over the floor or places, like I can't do life. And so for me, I definitely am not killing it with my kids being home now. I live with my 18 and 21-year-old. My 13-year-old is on her way home. And for me, it's really hard to clean, organize when people are around. And so I'm kind of a hot mess in feeling like I have my mojo on it. Like I'm just like every day, I'm like, is this just what it is? Like,
Yeah.
is there be a start and finish? So I'm someone that likes a clean house and then to sit somewhere and not move, right? Before the kids come home, just know it's clean. And I haven't had that in like the last year.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I think the struggle is real and I can relate to that. And it's like, I don't want to see a textbook out or another dish out or something, like there's always stuff. I don't know if this works for you, but I carve out one little area. And for me, it's been my home office
Yes.
where I'm able to maintain that level of control because I do think it is what it is to some degree. And I call that
Yeah.
like situational clutter, right? So there's a situation, we're all home. There's all stuff. We're eating every meal home. We're doing school home, work home, all the things. So you're going to have because we don't live in a magazine, we don't want to kill ourselves to, say our house
You
is
mean
like,
Better Homes isn't showing up today for a photo shoot?
yeah, exactly. But for me, if you can just carve out one little corner of wherever that is for you and keep that in that place of calm when you're starting to feel like just go there. That's what I do.
I'm going to do my dresser today and kind of
Yeah.
set it up as an altar of my favorite things and care for that. That's really funny because even with all of this, I felt so out of control. And one day I was like, I'm going to go buy 12 houseplants and just see if I can keep those alive. Because I felt so out of control on keeping my, home and my life in control. Like I was like, we're going back to basics. Can you keep houseplants alive, Hollan?
Oh my gosh.
And they are. They're still alive.
Yay. That's awesome. That's great. Well, I
Right.
love it.
Basics.
Well, again, thank you so much for coming on our show. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and putting this amazing content out there for the rest of us. It's truly a gift. And for all of you out there, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. If you haven't already connected up with us, we are on Instagram at Simply Be Organized, or hop on over to our Facebook group, This Organized Life Podcast, and ask your questions, comments, and don't forget, click the subscribe button so new episodes will get downloaded each and every week. Until next week, I am Lori Plow. Peace out.